All right. Hey guys, this is Alen and Leon. Welcome to episode 13 of Seize the Moment podcast. And today we have two very special guests. We got Ray Kump and Lucie Steiner, both stand-ups, and they have a podcast called Our Love is Disgusting.
Hey guys, that was a nice intro.
Thank you.
Thank you. It took us some time to perform.
Hold on, start over.
Oh, we got to start over. Oh yeah, we got to record.
Yeah.
Silly us.
So I think our first question has to be your name, the name of your podcast. How did you guys come up with it? Our love is disgusting.
I mean, look at us. We're animals and we fuck.
Yeah. No, yeah, we're heinous human beings.
I mean, Lucie's very attractive. Don't sell yourself short. You got a great body.
Oh, thank you. I love your body.
I love eating you out.
Yeah. I like sucking that cock, man.
Thank you, baby. Yeah, but what was the discussion?
We get a lot of pleasure out of each other's bodies.
It's really not the second. Like, we don't do shit stuff in bed, but we do like to, when one of us has to take a shit, we like start cuddling and go, "Oh, you gotta take a shit, baby? Oh, you gotta take a shit?" And we snuggle about it, and we just, it's very cute.
We're also just slobs. I mean, it's like, you might notice we have all this like camera equipment in the background.
Uh-huh.
We didn't set up any of it for this recording.
I just didn't think it was worth it for this.
Yeah.
All right. So as long as, but you guys aren't disgusting to each other.
No, we're not. I mean, and I got a great cock, so I'm not like, universally repulsive.
Yeah.
But it's more like just the way we'll just slobber on each other like we're 19 in the middle of a bar while people are trying to get food and we're just fingering each other under the bar. Actually, I've done that a few times, haven't I? Just fingered you under the bar.
Yeah, I mean, that's happened.
And people know what's going on, but they don't say anything.
That's happened.
Did they ever ask questions?
I honestly, I don't even think about it at the time, but then afterwards, it's like, yeah, that was probably illegal what we just did.
Yeah, I mean, they smell it.
Yeah.
They're like, what's that smell in the bar?
I mean, her vagina smells great, but, it's always going to have a certain odor when you start jiggling around down there.
I can smell your sex. That's where that line comes from.
Yeah, because he was fiddling with her bits.
Yeah.
So what do you guys? You guys like some kind of self-help thing? What is this?
Yeah.
What are we on here?
Well, Alan.
Well, I mean, yeah, we do like a self-help kind of like mental health podcast. I mean, like from our end, when we started, we were just like, yo, let's help people. Let's talk about like how your mind works, how we think, like why do we think the way we do. Try to like kind of break down like all these different perspectives. Try to get people to think in different ways.
Right.
So set in your ways.
So do you sell your own protein powder? Is that how this works?
Are you guys sponsored by Alpha Brain?
Yeah, we're sponsored by Onnit. Aubrey Marcus is our dude.
We created our own workout routines, mental health stuff.
We know Joe Rogan. Like.
I invented the fleshlight and the key to unlocking your brain.
Actually, yeah, that's legit. I don't know if you know that. He started out with...
with the fleshlight? Yeah, that I actually know. Yeah. That part I knew. That was really funny.
Yeah.
But, like, actually, I was wondering, like, how'd you guys get into comedy?
I mean, there's literally no bar for getting into comedy.
That's true.
Oh, you can just call yourself a comedian?
Yeah. I mean,
everyone does.
You can...
This is like, I mean, look, you start showing up at open mics and you don't have to get funny, you just don't stop coming, and they call you a comedian.
Yeah.
There's like 10 people who make money, and good for them.
Yeah.
And then, it's just, there is no... Yeah, you start, like, literally, it's like, when I started, there was a few less open mics, maybe, but, there was at least 10 a night, probably, throughout the city. And they're just, it's not like, if you're not familiar with open mic comedy, it's not like other places... I mean, I don't know where your listeners are from, but in some parts of the country, I've been told that open mics actually get audiences, and they're, like, fun to go to. But, in the city, it's just, a bunch of idiots in the back of a bar.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of, like, people jockeying for a spot on a comedy show that's happening in a laundromat somewhere.
But people actually do that? They do stand-up at laundromats?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, nothing to be proud of, but yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So, was that what it was like for you guys when you started out?
We're describing our experiences here. I didn't read this in a book.
Right.
Well, like, what do you guys do? Do you guys, like, just show up to an open mic? Or, like, do you have to, like, talk to anybody and kind of, like, know someone to get in? Or
No, it's an open mic. You just go and put your name on a piece of paper and maybe buy a drink if they make you. But,
Wow.
And then if you're funny enough that other shitty comics think you're funny, that that they'll put you on their shitty show, and then maybe you get on better shows, and then it's a whole fucking thing. You spend 10 years wasting your life, and then maybe you get an opportunity to make $60,000 a year.
Yeah, it's a big gamble to say the least. It's a gamble. Both it's a professional gamble and it's an emotional gamble because. Odds are you will turn out to be 50 years old and to have no human connections in your life. You don't have a family because you never started one because you're just doing these open mics.
I'm surprised more of them don't take their own lives. It just seems like a better option sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you guys know?
Anyway, it's really fun and great is what we're trying to say.
Yeah. Do we know who?
You know, Rich Voss and Bonnie McFarlane, or you heard of them before?
Yeah, I've met Rich.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I met both of them. Actually, we had Bonnie on our podcast. To me, when I was on Tim Dillon's podcast.
Oh, that's really cool.
I met her.
Yeah, they count. They kind of have a family, and they're doing the whole. I mean, yeah, I get it. Yeah, they're way older now, so. I could see that. But, they kind of make it work, right?
Oh, well, I guess, the alternative is to form a deep relationship with someone and then exploit that for the public, which is what we do, kind of.
Right, yeah, exactly. I talk about, how I will sometimes clean Lucie. What was I doing before? We shouldn't talk about that. We'll save it for our podcast.
Clean me with
can we get an exclusive?
Do you want to talk about that?
Talk about what?
I was stretching out.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Lucie wanted me to pop her back.
Because I had a crick in one of my joints.
Yeah, and so I started, I'm a big guy, so I pick her up, and I kind of, you do the thing where you kind of put the pressure on her lower back as you lift her.
Yeah.
And she starts farting like crazy. And,
and squeeze all the gas out.
Her back is still stiff, so.
It was like you were, it's almost like
It's
almost like you were burping me, but in reverse.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Can we be famous now?
Yeah, please.
Have we debased ourselves enough? Give us something.
When did you guys start your podcast? When did that idea come up?
It's relatively new.
Yeah, we started in March or April.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa, we started at the same time.
Nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
Kismet.
I really assumed for whatever reason that you guys have had it for much longer.
We've been together for a couple years.
Yeah.
And we talked about it, but we were too busy probably just grinding our dicks together.
Yeah.
So how'd you guys come up with the idea? Because it's really niche.
I think a common thing for us to do is just go to a bar and spend literally 4 or 5 hours drinking whiskey and arguing really intensely with each other about something we don't really disagree on.
Yeah.
But really it'd be some kind of minute thing about feminism.
Oh,
that,
yeah, sure.
I won't go the full. Do you remember any of them?
Well, we'll do these weird, these a kind of very particular obscure debates about things, and then but also we'll talk about. I think we just realized we talk about us as a couple in a way that not a lot of couples seem to for whatever reason. It's
right.
We'll just actively talk about having a baby and stuff. And
we were just at dinner with my parents at Peter Luger for my dad's 60th birthday, and I just blurted out. I wasn't even trying to be funny or anything. Hey, we're not pregnant or nothing, but we were thinking about baby names, and I started asking my dad about his uncle Hunzi, because I want to name our kid Hunzi. Which I think we landed. If it's a boy, it's Hunzi, right?
Oh, yeah, totally.
And if it's a girl, it's Hunzer or something?
Yeah, it's Hunzi A if it's a girl.
Yeah. But I think my brother's girlfriend got mad at us, low-key. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Because just
But people do have that reaction of you guys just talk about this. Isn't that a little intense to talk about?
Yeah, because if we leave each other or whatever, if we start taking on their cock, it's fine.
Right.
Not fine, but I'll be devastated.
But you'd be okay with it?
No, I might do something.
But I can sleep with it.
You can do whatever you want, but the consequences are what they are. But the point is that what am I gonna not talk about marrying you though? We're gonna get married someday.
Right.
What are you gonna sue me?
I don't see what the point is in making it a surprise that you're in love with someone 3 years down the line when you propose to them or whatever.
Yeah, it's gross, right?
Yeah, it's the people who I never understand people who are well, I can't tell if he's planning to propose. It's It's like, so you guys just like hide this information from each other? Like,
And like at 50, like, these rings are expensive, right? And like you're living together, especially nowadays.
Sure.
And like, so I imagine it'd be like, oh, I got this ring. Like, oh, is this why you weren't like chipping in for the Seamless for the past 6 months? It's just fucking bizarre to me.
Yeah.
And I can imagine, I guess the major reason why you guys connect with your audience is because you're willing to be so vulnerable and authentic about your lives, and especially your relationship.
Sure, and they also, it's hot. It's just we talk about. I think in the first episode we talked about why you wouldn't piss on me.
Oh yeah.
And then that night we ended up pissing on each other. Or you pissed on me. I don't think I pissed on you. And then we had episode 2. So you get to follow along in how our descending. We should start doing drugs together, like hard drugs.
Oh, totally. That would be awesome.
You ever think Lucie doesn't do cocaine? I mean, I'm not, either a coke guy, but I'm not the guy going, "Hey, why don't you take her to?" But, but she's got like a vehement, like I kind of feel like that's what we need for the podcast, babe.
Oh yeah, so you should convince me. It could be almost like watching like a tragic movie, like Blue Valentine or whatever, in real time.
Yeah, or like Fat Sid and Nancy.
But
to be clear, it's Fat Sid and Nancy, not Fat Sid and Nancy.
But yeah, that was an interesting debate too, because we got into the minutia of like why exactly I wouldn't piss on him, and it was like, for me, it was not a disgust thing. It was more like I was like I want to have it like a month in advance on the calendar.
Yeah, you want to pencil in a fucking date.
I want to pencil in like, this is the piss day.
You don't want a surprise piss.
Yeah, and he was like, "No, I want you to do it spontaneously."
Well, it's like I don't need piss. I'm not a piss fiend, right? I'm not like
a piss fiend.
I'm not like the day of gonna be like watching you going like, "Oh, eat that asparagus," and like, I'll enjoy that later. No, I just like, it's just in the moment. We're just two fucking creatures getting filthy, and why don't you take a look? You got piss, just throw it in my mouth.
Yeah,
it's fine. And so I want that primal. Like, I don't even need you to do it, but I want, if it's gonna happen, I want it to just be raw and dirty.
Yeah.
Which it was that night. You said, "Hey, you want to piss?" And I'm like, "All right, cool." And we went to the bathtub. It was great.
Yeah, we ended up doing it, and actually, that one went your way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I won.
Was the spontaneity what made it? Did it make it better?
The what?
Did the spontaneity make it better?
I mean, I don't. We didn't do a scheduled one, so I can't compare it. But
but it's weird if you schedule it, right?
No, well, now I kind of want to try it scheduled.
Now let's try it scheduled.
Yeah, let's fucking get a. We should do a live stream, put it like a Patreon thing.
Oh, live stream!
Oh my god!
Yeah, that's good.
That's genius.
Yeah.
If somebody pays you on Patreon, then they get access to that video.
You get to pick the food you're gonna eat.
Yeah.
You get
the exact amount of water.
The exact amount of mayonnaise you eat.
Yeah. Sure.
Why does mayonnaise change the quality of?
It's got to do something. It's mayonnaise.
It's got to make it creamier on some level.
Like a fucking like a creamsicle.
Yeah.
Oh, baby. Love you.
But yeah.
I wanted to ask you guys. Did any specific comedian or comedians kind of get you into comedy?
I mean, I always loved George Carlin.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, I loved,
Sinbad.
Oh.
I mean, House Guest is a great movie.
Yeah. That was
yeah, I was obsessed with Louis C.K. and that turned out great, obviously.
But interesting. Just actually on that topic, I'm not sure. Like, a lot of people debate whether or not he could have a comeback.
You think they had a comeback? Is what you're saying?
Well, yeah, something like that. But
you're entitled to your opinion. I mean, I disagree, but
yeah.
He was on Skankfest actually recently.
That's right. Yeah.
Appearance there, and the crowd went wild. According to all the stuff I heard, and it's. I mean, in the media, he's not doing so well, but when you actually go to a show, and he's there, people go crazy.
Well, I mean, look. Yeah, no, but it's like he's one of the greatest comedians of all time, and it's like you're not gonna that's not gonna go away because of this. I mean, the thing is, it's like I actually. I feel like people the way they try to separate the art from the artist is sometimes weird. Where they'll be either he's a great comedian and therefore he shouldn't be punished for this, or you know, or like he should be punished for this, and therefore we should forget about the fact that he was a great comedian. Like,
so I saw a white power chant at Skankfest. So I mean, I don't know if they're the best barometer for what you know, Louise. I mean, it was. I think it was tongue in cheek.
I didn't know about that.
oh yeah.
I think it was tongue in cheek, but you know, I mean, the point is that these aren't the people who are going to be, you know, lambasting. Hey, get him off the stage.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the same argument with Michael Jackson. I mean, I think you can still enjoy the music without actually liking the person in particular.
Especially since he's dead now. It's like, let it go.
Yeah, I mean, well, Lucie just went through a Weird Al thing. Wait, Louise dead?
No, Michael Jackson.
Oh, good. Weird Al, you saw last night. He wouldn't do the Michael Jackson song.
Yeah, I went to see a Weird Al concert, which was very fun.
She didn't plan it. Someone had an extra ticket. She's not a Weird Al. Like, she's not a fangirl.
I don't go deep on Weird Al, but you know, he's a fun time, and also very reputation pristine.
Yeah,
Weird Al's reputation.
Yeah, he's careful.
Yeah. And he wouldn't play Michael Jackson?
He has a song called "Eat It," for example.
Yeah,
which
that
I like that parody.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
There's also it was fat. I'm fat. I'm fat. You know it.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, like he won't do Michael Jackson parodies anymore.
No.
Apparently, because of this documentary, which I don't really get, because it's like we've been making jokes about like Michael Jackson pedophile jokes in this culture now for like. What, 10, 15
40 years.
Yeah, 40 years.
Since he was a kid.
The thing is,
Since he was a kid.
The thing is, it's so much harder now because obviously these people have come forth and like actually told their stories.
No, fuck that. Fuck that. We all knew. I mean, this is my opinion.
No, I hear you.
My opinion is, like, I knew. You should have known.
Yeah.
It's all you fucking dorks watching Hulu or whatever it's on and going, oh, now we know. Like, how much do you need to believe victims and to believe someone's a predator?
Yeah, it's not,
fucking retarded. It's ridiculous.
It's not really like now we know. It's like now our plausible deniability has been completely removed as a culture.
Who the fuck builds an amusement park in the bed? Like, just stop. We knew he had kids in the bed. We knew, like, this whole thing about the Jesus juice with the wine in the can. Oh, but we didn't know for sure. Go fuck yourselves.
Yeah.
Seriously. Like, you're letting kids get raped. Same thing with the Catholic Church. This whole country just loves fucking kids.
Yeah. And it's interesting because there's still people that defend him and Bill Cosby. Still.
Well, Cosby, you know, I get Cosby.
Cosby's kind of hard to defend.
No, is he?
Very hard to defend. I'd say very hard to
He's
defend.
literally in jail. He's chilling in jail right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are literally still people who would defend the both of them.
It's not like defending R. Kelly.
Yeah,
well, again, so to speak to the Louis thing, and I'm not making a case one way or the other per se, but the idea that, you know, when he's a very famous person,
right.
And when fans of and so if comedy fans, if he pops in on them, yeah, the average person doesn't have, like, you know, any kind of moral integrity, so they're not going to be like, boo, get away from me, you fucking legend.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
but you know, I mean, it's debatable. I mean, look, should he be never be able to do comedy again? That's Lucie's decision.
Well, it's
she
like
gets to decide.
What?
I'm letting you decide that.
I get to decide
when he comes back. Yeah.
No, you get to literally affect the rest of the trajectory of his career.
That is
on this show.
That's a lot of responsibility. Imagine if you were the person, like the sole person, who got to decide when everyone was redeemed. So
I would just be Harvey Weinstein. That's what Harvey Weinstein was.
Yeah.
Why did they just fuck everyone?
But that's actually a really good question, Lucie, since you are a comedian. What do you think? You think Louis deserves another shot?
I mean, look, to me the issue is more that there's no infrastructure for, like, dealing with part of the reason, like, this whole it gets like prosecuted in the press so much, and it gets prosecuted by public opinion when, like, a sexual misconduct happens, is because there's no reliable, like, you know, like infrastructure for, like, punishing those guys in court, right? So there's no system.
You mean laws?
Like, yeah. Well, it's like the laws don't do anything.
Right.
Like
the cops don't do anything.
The cops don't do anything. The laws aren't enforced, and, like, when they are enforced, it's like, you know, the criminal justice system doesn't exactly rehabilitate people. So it's like it's kind of like it's been, the responsibility for it has been shifted to the public. So it's like, which is not necessarily fair, because it's like then everybody has their own idea of when they want to see this guy again. It's like, for me, if he started doing stand-up at this point, especially if he, like, made some gesture, like if he did, like, a big donation to, like, I don't know, like, you know, Rain,
Federalist Society.
the Federalist Society, to the Ayn Rand Institute. Then he's redeemed. No, but if he made some big donation to Rain or something, and then he was and he demonstrated some personal change, then it's me personally, I don't have a problem with him doing stand up again. Yeah. But it's I can't decide that for clubs, and there might be some other person who's was traumatized by the same thing he did who never wants to see him again. So it's I don't know. It's kind of the kind of thing you can't regulate.
Well, at the end of the day, put people in jail when they do crimes.
Yeah.
And if enough people, the problem in this country is that no one cares about rape. The people don't care about rape. That's why no one cares about enforcing rape, except for women, which is half the population, whatever.
Yeah.
Point is, but even they're not vocal enough. So it's if you're gonna, so this person wants to see him, well, don't go. Yeah, maybe don't pop in. Maybe if you're a committed sex offender, or whatever you want to call it, a serial jerker. Maybe don't pop in on shows unannounced.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's maybe you kind of lost the credence to just drop in on people. Yeah. But again, it's the kind of thing that it's just going to be hard to regulate because it's the public isn't a monolithic thing. It's
right. Yeah. So it's no one's going to decide. I mean, he should even I think because we talked about this before. I think Lucie's he's rich, he's famous, he's going to get a slap on the wrist, but you still want the slap on the wrist.
I would rather see him get the slap on the wrist of a fine and required community service than see this kind of vague public, debate over him. And where he belongs in society, because to me it's that's a vague thing that just lasts forever and nobody ever gets real satisfaction out of it. Mm-hmm. If we were able to see him in front of a judge going because you admitted to this and you did this, here's what you have to do, here's the contract you're going to fulfill to get to re-enter society. Yeah. I'm not saying it's going to satisfy everyone, but it's it's more that's how. Yeah, it's
because what he did, it wasn't. I think you'd agree. You don't like the equivocations or whatever, but it wasn't as bad as Cosby.
No, of course not.
And Cosby, no one's asking Cosby. When's Cosby going to come back? Well, he's in jail, so he's not coming back.
Yeah.
And the point is, because it is a minor thing. Sure, he's not going to be as. But have something. Have society say this wasn't chill.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I mean, it speaks to the bigger issue of abuse of power. And I mean, it's interesting because even if, let's say, as a public, we couldn't stop, obviously, Kavanaugh from getting confirmed. And literally, this is a public body. Yeah, with him, it would be much harder.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. That's the other thing. It's we can't even, real rapists still have power. So it's
I mean,
me and Scoot were spiking a punch.
Yeah.
I do wonder what kind of effect public shaming would have, though. I mean, I would hope it had some sort of effect on him.
Yeah, I would hope so too. I mean, honestly,
he's lost a lot of money. Let's not forget. I'm not saying it makes it different, but it's not just shaming. He's lost huge contracts, and some people go, well, he'll get them back. I don't know about that. I mean, he's been tainted forever, so it's not just the shame. There is an economic effect here, and he should also be, this should be a criminal thing, but he's lost millions of dollars.
Yeah, he was literally about to come out with a movie around the time that news came out, and then he couldn't release it, and that was money down the drain, for example, to your point. Yeah.
I mean, his show, all the things he produced, they removed him as a producer from all that FX shit.
Yeah, that's another way of doing it, is that you have an economic consequence of doing this kind of thing. Yeah. But it's to me, it's I've always been somewhat skeptical of relying on that, because it's then the punishment for something objectively bad is just at the whims of capitalism, kind of. It's maybe, I don't know, maybe that is the most effective thing in the long run.
In general, I do think that capitalism is a lot more effective than most things.
Yeah. People
shit on it as far as human rights, and there is downsides, but oftentimes it is the rising tide that raises people up and eventually drowns them.
But in this case, this sort of, I mean, obviously, I don't know what an alternative would look like, but the downside to capitalism, and this obviously respect of Louis C.K., is that, obviously, short-term profits are what matter. So if they could get them into the clubs and they could get people to come and buy tickets, these owners, they won't care. These club owners will not care.
Yeah, it's like you can't really expect them to be motivated by anything else, honestly.
Well, the one thing you say about the Soviet Union is no one abused their power, which was nice.
Yeah.
One can argue that was a bastardization of Marxism.
You show me the pure one, I'll jump right on. Castro? Fucking Pinochet? Who are we doing here?
Well, Pinochet.
The wrong dictator, man. Way wrong dictator.
Who am I thinking of? There's a bunch of them. Chavez? Who's the good one? Where's the good Marxism?
It existed for 3 years in Europe, and it existed for 3 months in a European commune, and it was beautiful.
What's the thing? All this, that's again an economics thing, but like all this Scandinavian socialism we talk about, it's all like the free market. It's free market capitalism with a safety net, which is like important, but like it's not. It's not at all socialism.
No, definitely. But what progressives argue for in this country is definitely for that system. So even though we call it socialism, technically that's a misnomer. Nobody really wants government-owned production, like in terms of infrastructure rather of production.
Yeah, but they also the few problems. One is that one of the reasons it works is because at first they weren't utilizing. They were kind of being more controlling, and part of what makes the Scandinavian system work is that they exploit Western capital markets, effectively and smartly to invest these pension funds, which just because of scale, the United States can't do. It's like we're the ones running the capital markets. We can't, we're the ones making these exploitable, huge problems that they're able to kind of, capitalize on. So I mean, I'm saying as far as like cost effectiveness, I don't know if we could really make a Scandinavian model work in that sense. But
your feeling, at least the way I've always interpreted you, is like your feeling is kind of like, let's just do it anyway because America is collapsing.
Well, look, we're spending $700 billion a year or more on the military just for weapons we don't even need, just to pump up a fucking a minority of businessmen who fucking just start wars at whims, and like and it's trillions of dollars in debt. Yeah, why not? Yeah, give someone some fucking Oxycontin. What do I care?
Yeah, right.
That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Healthcare, sure.
Yeah, I honestly, that's kind of how I feel in part about like I do think that there. I have a weird, borderline nihilistic view of the Me Too movement in the sense that it's like, do I see excesses here and there? I do. But it's kind of like the main reason I'm on board with it at this point is that it's like I don't think that like women's rights in general is like a guarantee, or that it's like it's gonna stay around. So it's like, if you can get the dial to turn a little bit towards like recognizing rape victims or something, great, do it, because it's like honestly all of this might be rolled back in the next 10 years. So just have at it.
Yeah.
Are you gonna cut my cock off in my sleep? That's what it sounds like to me. Like, I don't know if Me Too is right, but I just want to see a cock get cut off. That's all I need.
We need a win.
So what makes it so easy for you guys to be vulnerable on your show? Because I mean, it takes a lot of courage to talk about and do what you guys do.
I think it's a lack of respect for other people.
Yeah.
Not a lack of self-respect?
No, I'm fine with myself. I just feel like this guy's gonna know that I fucking I leave streak marks on my underwear. I don't give a shit. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Are you Warren Buffett? Fuck yourself.
We've passed the chrysalis as far as like people's personal lives being exposed anyway.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, it's like, it's like the government has all our nudes, guys. Mm-hmm. We might as well.
Well, it's not just nudes, man.
Yeah.
What were we doing when we were nude?
Yeah.
It's out there.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. You guys want to see it?
No.
I mean, at one point, it's like Ray and I, we're both sexual beings, mm-hmm. As everyone is on some level.
I'm right now.
But like, I've talked about on the show. It's cathartic sometimes because like I've talked on the show about it's like I used to do like webcam stuff like back in the.
Oh, I forgot about that chat roulette.
Back in college, yeah, just because it was like I kind of like the exhibitionism of it,
right?
And it's like that stuff. I'm totally aware that it's like that stuff is out there, and it's like it might come back around. I'm probably protected on some level just by the sheer volume.
Yeah, some guys got like a hard drive with like a terabyte, and somewhere in that terabyte is little college-age Lucie just furiously jerking off her clit. Yeah, you like that? You like that? And some like Samoan guy or 10 other guys in a room at the same time.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even looking at Lucy. He was like, looking at the 10 different cocks. And Lucy was just in a room full of guys jerking each other off and like showing them her clit, and they're all like, whatever, and like look at the cocks.
It's all owned by some digital hoarder somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's a, it's like, that's why it's like on some level I feel protected just because there's so much shit out there.
Yeah.
But it's like,
shit, like, you doing shit stuff.
Yes, there's people doing shit stuff.
Nice.
And so it's like, but there's always the chance it could come back around. So it's like,
we should do a fucking promotion where if you could find a Chat Roulette Lucy, we give you something. We let you fuck us.
Like a reward system.
You can fuck us both together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then kill us.
Yeah, well, we might as well die. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you can find this, you can fuck us and kill us.
All right, guys, you heard this.
That's the best. We should do a little documentary of that.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like, where's Waldo? What sexual thing does Waldo sound like? Where's clit?
You're a wizard with words, baby.
What's so cool is that it doesn't sound like you're ashamed of any of it.
Well, exactly. It's kind of like at this point, there's something freeing about the culture being so dirty because it's like at this point, it's like it's not like pretending it didn't happen or feeling shame about it is gonna protect me from it. So it's like it's not like I'm living in a culture where you have to like put on an air of virginity.
Look, we have an ex-president who's saying, "Hey, I was on the pedophile's private plane, but I didn't go to his child fuck island," and like that's just chill. But like, so we're gonna be ashamed that she's jerking off on a fucking on a roulette wheel or whatever.
Yeah.
What is it, like Epstein?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know that Clinton was on his. You know about that shit, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that all of them claim sort of ignorance in both cases. Trump obviously, but Clinton too.
But don't you think like if you're a president, you have to deal with like across the spectrum, like either some of the like the best people in the world and some of the most evil people in the world?
No, you don't.
No?
What?
You don't have to. What are you talking about?
Kind of like at least if you're trying to do the whole talking with them thing to figure stuff out.
Well, what was Epstein helping them figure out? He was a scam artist. What are you talking about? He was a guy who like scammed Wall Street and fucked kids. What was he doing for Clinton?
I mean, it is true though.
I'm assuming he was a big.
He wasn't Yasser Arafat.
If you're talking about Assad or something, that might be someone you have to talk to.
But I'm assuming
which one was Assad again? What, from Syria?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, but like the difference between sitting down negotiating with Syria and like getting on a private plane of a pedophile for no reason.
Right.
Like get your $1 million from go start a website and get $1 million that way.
Yeah, that wasn't him presidenting. That was just recreation.
Yeah, you guys are come on, don't go fucking stumping for a pedophile. You're better than this.
Oh, just so everyone knows, no, that's not what's
so
happening.
That's so funny.
Just in case.
Yeah, that's so funny. I don't think anybody would think that.
Watch us in the news, like, podcaster. Epstein is great.
Pedophilia and a disturbing new recording.
Look, you gotta negotiate with pedophiles. You can't just like, close the door on them. You gotta talk to them in good faith.
Have you ever heard of something called open discourse?
I've heard about an open asshole.
Let's talk.
Much like a little boy's asshole, the discourse must be open.
And in Michael Jackson news today.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But what were we talking about anyway?
They were saying how Epstein's so innocent. And, I forget what.
No. Oh yeah, just like being open about like past sexual, like about your online sexual history or something. It's like and also it's like there's a little bit of indignation behind it too because it's like as shameless as like the culture has become on like the level of power or whatever, like. Women whose like nudes get leaked or something will still get shit for some reason, and it's like there's still like a weirdly puritanical layer underneath all of this.
Now you can't be an Age of Ultron or whatever.
Yeah, it's like, and it's just like, yeah, fuck you. I mean, part of it is like, fuck you, you know?
Right. Which, to be fair, no one kept Scarlett Johansson, from working.
Well, no, but...
Yeah. But she had a great body.
She's Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah. I mean, do they still do it? Do they still shame? It doesn't seem like they shame you much anymore.
I think it's gotten better.
It's gotten more the fact of like her... The onus seems to be on... But they're not... When's a sex... I don't know, a sex tape, though. Like, if Taylor Swift was on camera sucking big cock, would that affect her? Like, she's got the family plan.
Definitely.
Yeah, she's also popular, in the South, so... Yeah,
I bet it would affect Taylor Swift. Also,
no one fucks kids in the South, huh?
It also affects, like, private people, I think, the most, almost. Like when somebody, like a private person gets, like, revenge porn or something. It's like an ex, like a bad ex, like, post their pictures or something. Like, if you're working for just, like, a local, like, realtor firm or something, and it's like that gets exposed, your job could be vulnerable.
Should revenge porn be legal if the guy doing it, like, shows, like, him not getting it up? Like, I'm sorry, it's never happened. He's like, oh, just stop talking for a minute. Like,
because then it's mutually assured destruction, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, it's a weird kind of crime in the sense that it's not the initial thing that destroys a person, but it's like the person who does it is relying on the society to be almost shittier than them. Like, it's like they're relying on the society to, like, take all the Puritan anger out on the victim.
Well, I think the key is maybe the moral here is don't court the family dollar. Don't be the family act.
Yeah.
What is that anyway? I want families to listen to me. I want fucking guys who fuck their daughters but pretend to go to church to fucking buy my album. It's like, fuck you. Like, it's how you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Sure. You don't be a family act. What's this horse shit?
There's nothing better than when, like, a family-friendly person is revealed to have done something.
And Bill Cosby was the ultimate family-friendly comic.
Disgusting. Yeah. He was America's Dad or whatever.
Yeah. And who else? The fucking Ryan Seacrest? Well, he's still... Nothing's come out yet, right? But
wait, what happened with him?
Wasn't there something?
Must have happened.
Something did happen really quickly, and they went away really quickly. But I forget. Maybe he's innocent, or maybe it's just he sold his soul to Disney years ago. So.
Yeah.
But I'm sure. My point is, he's the kind. Look, you gotta look at the landscape and go, who's likely to be a predator. And my opinion, that guy seems like a predator.
Yeah.
Oh, God. But yeah, I mean, I think it was really, like, important that we touched on how easy it was for you guys to be vulnerable. And I mean, what's so cool about the both of you is you could sense your authenticity on screen. And the fact that you guys are just able to be comfortable with one another and obviously comfortable with the audience. I mean, you don't really get that too often. There you go.
Spit in my mouth. Spit in my mouth.
What were you talking about? Authentic with the audience?
Nice.
Is this what your podcasts are usually like?
Yeah, I mean, usually we're just, her hand's on my cock, my fingers in her ass. But no, we talk about politics too.
Yeah.
No, I can definitely tell that.
We get into the real issues as well.
Yeah.
Into the minute arguments.
Into the real tissues as well. Make a soup out of your ass.
No, we went canvassing together.
Uh-huh.
We did political canvassing together.
Oh, we did do that together
What
last
did you
week.
guys canvass for?
No, it wasn't political canvassing. How are you saying it's political canvassing? That's the whole point. It wasn't supposed to be political canvassing.
Or it's political in the sense of
we went. No, I was roped into this. Let me tell the story. We went out last week. Mm-hmm. Lucy tells me that I'm going to go out. There's a thing where people are handing out flyers to, like, immigrants or whatever in, like, certain areas for these ICE raids to give them information on their rights. Mm-hmm. And she was telling me how, like, why don't you do your I got my own podcast. Why don't you do your podcast while I'm gone? I'll come with you. And she was trying to, like, make it, no, you don't have to come. And, like, she thinks she's better than me and more virtuous. and so screw you for that. No, when we went out, and then as soon as we get there, and I was all gung-ho for this, because, fuck ICE. But it's like everyone's wearing AOC shirts. I'm like, this is kind of weird. And then, look, we did the work. I was the best one of the group, I think, or whatever. But as the day, it was definitely a more political operation than I envisioned.
Well, I knew it was organized by AOC, which I thought was great. But it's like, I mean, there was like definitely two different strategies where our strategy was just like rapid fire handing out flyers.
Well, not just to any random person, but people were reading my flyers and appreciating and liking them and understanding what was going on. And this guy, like this fucking virtue signaling fucking nutcase who was like wearing a fucking, he looked like he's dressed like Serpico for some reason, and he's fucking going like, oh, why don't you stay and chat with them and get to know them first? And it's like, look at me. Do I look like a out of work ICE agent? Like no one, like these people aren't gonna want to chat. I'm gonna start going like, hey, do you know your rights? They're gonna think they're under arrest. Like, give them the info. Like just lead with the Spanish side of the paper. It's fine. The problem is I suspect, I can't say for sure. I suspect that as you start talking, it becomes more like, so you registered to vote?
You look like you're just gonna be like, hey, do you know your rights? You have the right to shut the fuck up and come with me right now.
Citizens of ICE arrest.
Citizens of ICE arrest.
Oh, God. But that's really cool that you guys ended up doing that. What was it like for you?
I enjoyed it, but I mean, I didn't like the passive-aggressive looks the guy was giving me.
I mean, it's always like, it's like you use your time. It feels good to use your time to do something good, but there is always especially unfortunately with the left, there is a thing with the left where whenever you're out supporting a cause, no matter how specific the cause is, there's always somebody trying to needle in with their own pet cause.
Oh yeah, we were on a train to where we go? What's Oceanside? No. Corona, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, we had to get a subway, once we met, and so there's 4 or 5 of us, and this one dude's pushing veganism the whole time, and how he's like some 75-year-old I don't know what
yeah,
alderman or whatever they call it. He's some guy who's these people. It's like what they do on the weekends. They fucking just get in with local politics, and that's fine. It's important. But I mean, at a certain point, it becomes the people who run the low level shit in this country are just using it as a social club.
Right.
And it's just and they're just fucking eating beans and or soybeans or whatever the fuck, or and how pigs aren't fucking efficient.
Right, it's like anytime you go, it's like you want to protest a war, and it's like there's somebody there legalize weed too, and it's like I'm down to legalize weed, but it's like, can we focus for a second?
I'm trying to get kids out of cages here.
Yeah.
And I mean, so interestingly enough, I think it was maybe a month or 2 ago. So we had on this person, a friend of mine named Jessie Manisto. And so she used to be an active member of the DSA. So she was a member since way before the Bernie Sanders period, way before, years before.
Oh, back when no one respected them.
Yeah, no, literally, she said that when she came there, she said there were 500 members across the entire country. Yeah. And then she said actually, when the whole Bernie craze happened, that things got so much worse where, sort of kind of the people who were more socialist and more kind of, I guess even communists too, that they became sort of so rigid and so fanatical that it became hard for her to have any of them, the original members, to have any particular discourse there. Where sort of anytime you said something that was against the party line at the time, you were pretty much just shut down and kind of thrown out.
Oh, so it actually became more left.
No. So she actually left. So
it went more left than it was to begin with.
Yeah, so she said initially it was just full of kind of old school kind of union heads. She said a lot of academics were a part of it, and as the Bernie craze happened, she's now it's full of a bunch of kind of zealot 20-year-olds.
Well, that makes sense because growing up or whatever, I always remember I didn't know much about them. I always thought they were more kind of the left version of libertarians. Not in the sense of the same ideas, but a little more level-headed and kind of exactly. In the past few years, it definitely seems like they're just full-on Marxists now.
Yeah.
Well, there definitely seems to be more of a mix of people who are actually supporting Bernie Sanders' agenda, and then there are more, but they're more mixed in now with people who do kind of full-on want to nationalize certain industries and
right.
Yeah, it's there's definitely a range.
I feel and the weird thing about this current generation of kids, these 20-year-olds now, is you talk about how because a big thing in general when you argue, if you look at the Hayek and Road to Serfdom, just in general, the way you would argue against socialism would be well, it's all good at first, but then it descends into the the minority extremes pull on the edges of the center, and it becomes this thing. But I feel like this group of 20-year-old, this generation, Y, Z, whatever the fuck they call them, like, they want the fucking jackboots. They want the fucking, like, they want to go straight to Stalinism, I feel like. They won't admit it. But I feel like they kind of want, they're sick of this, like, because at the very least, because they're so sick of seeing the opulence of rich people.
Yeah.
That it's like, I'm not saying it's unfair, but I feel like we've lost the handle on the reasons.
I mean, that attitude exists. I don't know that it. I don't know that it represents the majority of people who identify with socialism now. Like, I think people identify with socialism more because this kind of propaganda machine on the center right has so effectively conflated socialism with any social program that it's like now the consequence of that is people are like actively calling themselves socialists.
Well, I agree that there's an issue, but I do also think it's pushed more people towards just, full on Stalinism.
Yeah, I think there are people like that. I don't think they
may not think that in their, but I think you could tell because this whole internet, the Twitter, internet, it ruined the world, and it's made the whole world binary.
Yeah.
So there's not going to be a nuance. So if the pendulum shifts, it's going to be the guillotine. And fucking, it's going to be thrown against the wall, and you're going to be done.
Yeah, and that was actually the purpose of our show with Jessie. We talked about nuanced thinking and its importance. So for her, she said essentially like when the DSA, not when they started out, but when she was a part of it, that what they used to do was they would actually present counter arguments to one another within those particular kind of whatever sessions or whatever you want to call them.
Sure.
And so the point of it was like they would have these meetings to actually refine their thinking. So there would be like these debates where somebody would present a point, somebody would present a counterpoint, and either you kind of, let's say you have more support for your own system of thinking, or you pretty much synthesize the two ideas presented. But and the point of that was that essentially you refine your thinking and you understand that, hey, you're not always right, but it's okay because we have kind of this world of ideas and this world of people that have to actually live together with these ideas.
Right. The problem with that is that what you're describing has nothing to do with politics.
No, not anymore. That's the thing. Not in the DSA anymore. It's actually not like that. So the few meetings that I went to, so there were. I don't want to sort of kind of shit on them or anything. So, but a lot of the meetings that I went to, so like they were pretty extreme there. And I mean, it was like this is the way we're going to do things. And there was a lot of infighting. And so there was like no kind of really real ability to connect or see other people's perspectives. It wasn't like this with everybody, by the way.
Right.
So the DSA, I have to say this is full of a lot of really cool people.
We met people who I don't agree with them, but they're, they have respectable opinions.
Yeah.
I'm not like some kind of ardent anarcho-capitalist. I'm just, I'm skeptical of these people, but they're good people.
As well you should be, and that's the thing that I think is lost: the fact that we're not like accepting of skepticism on any level.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
But it's also like, when I say like it's not reflective of politics, I don't even mean against the DSA. Like there is no place in politics for discourse whatsoever. No. Like this whole thing has become just. It's just two raw nerves being like fucking just kicked every fucking 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Like everyone's just reacting, and just there is no hope. I don't know why we're discussing it. There really isn't any hope.
Actually, I got a pretty cool idea as far as that goes because I've been thinking about that too, and I was like, what would be the solution? And maybe like a couple of times, for example, Rogan, he had like I think it was Tulsi Gabbard and like Andrew Yang on his podcast, right? Now, I'm not saying anything particular about either of them, but what was cool was you got to see like these political candidates kind of like speak long form and like kind of see who they are and kind of like pick apart their ideas and stuff like that. So like maybe if there was like a podcast where you had not just one politician, maybe two of them from like separate kind of standpoints, and then maybe somebody moderating it, kind of like a Rogan, maybe someone else, whatever, and then
that's like one of the problems too with like, for example, how big the Democratic field is this year is that like the debates have kind of lost any semblance of we're debating policy here. It's like it's more like, all right, everybody get your sound bites in, and and then by the time everyone's done that, it's like there isn't really any time to go into detail, and it's like until you've narrowed the field out, you can't even go deep on people's policy opinions. And like even when these like major networks have time to do it, they don't use it to do that.
And to be fair, it's like if you want information on Tulsi Gabbard, if you want information on Andrew Yang, you can get it.
Yeah.
Like, and there is interviews of them talking where you can get a robust idea of what they're about. No one gives a fuck.
Yeah.
No one's watching this podcast you're describing. Like, yeah, 1 million people might, 2 million people, but it's not going to be like if the people were interested in that kind of thing. That's the problem is my reason I think there's no hope is not because of the system. It's because of the American people. We're terrible. We've allowed ourselves to become fat, lazy, and terrible. And even if you're not fat, you're spoiled. You're fucking you're sensory fucking engaged with iPads. No, I'm an old man. I'm sorry, but but the point is we've allowed ourselves to be basically just ultra consumer. Like I'm a capitalist, but ultra consumerist to the point where it's like we're just consuming and reacting, and no one's like the ratings tell the story. If people cared, they'd watch. Yeah, I know Rogan gets a lot of listeners, but I don't see the political discourse. Like, if anything, he's been around for like 10 years. I remember listening to him almost 10 years ago, and he's great, and he has great discussions. If anything, and I'm not saying any causal effect, but things have gotten way worse and way more binary in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I don't know that anyone's really. I don't know where this people in their spare time seem to like nuanced discussions, but when it comes to actual politics, it's just getting so people just have too much of an emotional stake in it.
Yeah, and plus it's beyond the problems that the internet has given us and instant gratification in that way it's given us, and the polarization that you can see happening with YouTube, where people are led more and more down the rabbit hole of one kind of binary thinking. It's in addition to those problems which have been created to some extent by the new technology, Americans have always been, prone to mob mentality and paranoia especially with regard to different races and immigrants and stuff. It's that's kind of that's kind of a tale as old as time when it comes to the United States. So it's
the cages are new, but yeah,
the cages are new, but at the same time it's we were delousing immigrants with Zyklon B at one point.
What?
Or
you sure about that? With Zyklon B?
Or not with it may not have been with Zyklon B. With lye.
Well, maybe. Is that a problem?
Yeah. It was caused health problems.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
I thought don't they do it in prisons too? They delouse you?
Maybe. There was a big controversy at one point with them. It was I think it was also on the southern border, but 100 years ago or so, where it was
oh.
Yeah, where they were using a toxic chemical
to
delouse people, and it's now that's not the same as cages, but it's the same kind of principle of there's always been a dehumanizing attitude towards the immigrant, and it's there's always been. Just reading up on something
maybe the Native Americans should have deloused us. we brought over fucking
absolutely.
Yeah, we killed them all.
Yeah, totally.
With the diseases.
Yeah, they should have more than deloused us.
Yeah.
But even with something the creation of the Levittown suburb, I don't know how much you guys know about that period of history, but it's such a great microcosm of how crazy people go, particularly white people, honestly. When the concept of sharing their communities comes up with people who aren't white or with immigrants or whatever.
Well, the reality of
what happened then?
Well, basically, the Levitt houses were these houses that were, this guy Levitt designed them after the war. They were basically made for returning GIs. They were all affordable, and you get them they had these loans for GIs. So they were kind of the first suburbs.
Yeah.
And there was
there was a black family that came in. Levitt decided he wanted to experiment with desegregating the suburb, and so he brought a black family in, and it was a guy, I forget if the husband in that family was a veteran or whatever, but it's this nice
the veterinarian.
Veterinarian.
You got mixed up. He's always a veterinarian. He's an animal doctor. Big problem.
Word wizard, baby. But essentially, this family moved in, and it's really interesting because it's there's actually a series of photos from the perspective of this black family's house, because as soon as they moved in, people just started showing up on the lawn across the street from them So there's a series of photos where it's like an empty lawn across the street from them, and then it's like some white people staring at them in the next photo, wow. and then there's more people, and then in the next photo there's more people, yeah. And it's like being in a weird like a Twilight Zone episode.
It's like Get Out.
Well, don't bury the lead because it ended in a violent mob.
Well, and then it ended.
Did they burn the house down or something?
Well, I think some people were throwing stuff. I don't think it got as violent as burning the house down.
Okay.
But there was an angry mob that ended up surrounding Levitt mm-hmm. and like demanding basically that he like got rid of this family. And eventually the family ended up leaving just for their own safety. Right. But it's just a microcosm of how it's like you push for a little bit of tolerance in this country, and the backlash yeah. like throughout history has just been massive.
Well, let's also not let Levitt off the hook. I mean, maybe yeah. he wasn't. The suburbs in this country, especially I'm from Long Island. We had we had a Levittown on Long Island. There's one in Pennsylvania also. There's a bunch of them. There's a few Levittowns. And but my point is, these were designed for white people to get away from minorities.
Yeah,
That's how they were used. That's how they were treated. I mean, we had the Robert Moses in Long Island designed a lot of our parkways. Northern State Parkway, the Southern State Parkway, the Causeway, and on those parkways, the overpasses don't allow for any kind of trucks. If you have a commercial truck, you have to take the Long Island Expressway and then a couple of roads. And the common knowledge, I don't know if it's ever been officially stated, like, why can't you have trucks on the, because they didn't want buses bringing black people to the beaches on Long Island. Yeah. Like this whole thing is designed to, around racial tribalism. Right. And I'm not sure why we're talking, as it relates to the, but the point is we've been fucked forever is the point.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, the point.
Tribalism.
Right, and I think that's where we started, kind of with nuanced thinking and how difficult it is for a lot of people, obviously, to engage in it and to take the other person's perspective.
Right.
Yeah. And so,
totally.
And so, I mean, also just to kind of, not only just to play devil's advocate, but to kind of shine a light on what it's like for the other kind of sort of people, right, that sort of find it difficult to engage in nuanced thinking. So in terms of capitalism, right, I mean, capitalism takes a lot of our time and a lot of our energy. And so for a lot of people, just for the sake of time, obviously, they prefer simple answers to really difficult questions. And so a lot of the times it's easier just to pick a team and kind of side with it rather than to actually spend 2 or 3 hours watching a particular debate.
Yeah, it's called being a moron.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I really don't.
It's willful. It's willfully being a moron. It's willfully not engaging with any. Like, look, it's one thing you don't spend your whole life doing it, but to not understand the basic, tenets of how the economy works, mm-hmm. and just disregard. Like, people just are too lazy to do it. We're letting them off the hook. I don't. It's too hard. Everyone's got to. Yeah, we all fucking work. And some people, spend their 20s getting laid and fucking a lot of women, and good for them. I spent my 20s reading some books, mm-hmm. and now I have Lucy.
But like, no, I mean, I agree with you actually, Leon. Like, it's like I don't think it's necessarily a lack of intelligence, but I do think it's like the society we're in does foster a pretty short attention span and a lack of awareness at the very least.
Yeah, to be clear, I wasn't saying they're like innately unintelligent. I'm saying that they're willfully allowing themselves to not educate themselves. I mean, like, I'm not saying you have to fucking go, study fucking poli-science at fucking Yale. I'm saying, but like fucking learn a little bit about the world instead of just shooting your mouth off.
Yeah, well,
take some time to learn a little.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Not all the time, but sometimes.
Yeah, I hear you, but I mean, for the people who are, again, sort of working 40, 50, 60 even hours a week, I mean, that's not what they want to spend their free time doing. That's why
honestly, even when they do feel like they're doing it, it's like, so it's like, you have maybe a couple hours a day to educate yourself. And at that point, once you decide, okay, I'm going to try to educate myself on this, well, then you're up against a multi-billion-dollar media conglomerate that very much wants to keep you in the realm of simple thinking. So it's like, in a way, it's like they're fighting a battle. It's like you're fighting a battle against misinformation, even when you're trying to get information. So it's like, on some level, it's like, what chance do people have?
I think one of the big. Here's the thing. I've spent a long time in my life. I've gone through different phases where I was raised in a house that worshipped Ronald Reagan, and then I went to college and became more liberal. Like, you vacillate back and forth, anarchism, libertarian. My point is, like, it takes a certain level of like humility to like change, to be like, I believe this, and then to like all of a sudden on a dime go, oh, maybe I was wrong about that. I was an idiot for 5 years talking about libertarianism.
Hey, I was a conspiracy theorist before.
Well, there's a lot of conspiracies that are actually true.
Yeah, I mean, well, not to the level that I was. Trust me.
Oh, fair enough.
Pretty embarrassing.
Fair enough. But the point is like what was I saying? Oh no, it's like I think of course it's hard for people when they're busy, sure. But like it's also in cable news is to blame. But it's also I think it's a lot to ask to kind of disregard your ego and just say, hey, I was wrong, and like change your point of view. People don't want to do it, and it's like a thing that's like built into. I think it's how we get. It's kind of built into the idea of the system that we have. It's like it's innately tribalistic because people are going to kind of stick to their. Like no one really debates don't tend to work. It just they kind of drive people closer to the fringe on the other side when you give them a valid argument. Because you're reducing any kind of middle ground that they had because and they just becomes dogmatic to them. When you kind of strip away, like if they have like if they can quote you statistics on black crime, for instance, and you show them why that's flawed and why the data is irrelevant, they're not going to all of a sudden, most of the time, change their mind. They're just going to kind of still believe what they believe, but then not have data to back it up. So it just makes it more dogmatic, in my opinion.
I'm curious, Leah, what conspiracies were you into?
Oh God, that's like a show in itself. So, oh my
Actually,
God.
I want to hear it too. At least one.
What's the weirdest one?
You could say you don't believe it anymore.
No, I definitely don't. All right, so, my God. All right, so it even went beyond Alex Jones. So, like, I was into Bill Cooper. Do you guys know who he was?
The UFO guy?
Yes, the UFO guy, the one who wrote Beyond the, Behold the Pale Horse. So he was like, oh my God, this shit was so wild, man. So he was like an old Army veteran. I don't remember exactly. Oh no, Navy veteran. I don't remember what his position was, but like, so he was actually one of the first people to expose the Bilderberg meetings. But he believed, for whatever reason, that they were actually held in submarines every single year. And so he had this weekly radio show, which was called The Hour of the Time. And so it was so phenomenal. So what he would do is he would read this esoteric literature from different like Freemasons, people like from the Rosicrucians, government officials, right? Like this stuff that you would never get in the mainstream. And so he would pick apart the information that obviously proved this theory of there being a one world government. So he would go into like Freemasonic literature and say, hey, look, this is like Manly P. Hall, right? And Manly P. Hall is advocating for a one world government. And here was, I forgot what his name was. So Bill Clinton's advisor. He wrote this. Oh my God, I forgot the name of the book, but it's like super popular.
George Stephanopoulos?
No. So I forgot his name, but he wrote this really prominent book in the conspiracy movement, right? That's like really well known there. And so
I know what you're talking about. Tragedy and Hope, Carol Quigley.
Yes, there it is. Yeah, Carol Quigley. Yeah. So and essentially he also advocated for one world government, right? And then what they would do is they would put it. Well, what Cooper did was he would put it together with like, let's say, communist thought, and he would say, hey, look, Lenin advocated for the same thing, right? This is what they actually want. So even though in the literature it's benevolent, obviously when we see it in actuality, what we see is that it's actually complete totalitarianism. So Cooper, like what I believed at the time, was that it was all connected, right? That there was no such thing as these different teams, right? There was no right versus left. So there was a connection between capitalism and communism in the sense that it was all this big system run by the Illuminati who were essentially feeding you benevolent garbage while trying to create a totalitarian communist worldwide regime.
Well, that's the biggest. In a way, it's like it almost seems like that's because I've heard that before from other people too, and it's like it almost seems like it's simultaneously the easiest conspiracy to buy and the most destructive because it's like it's understandable how you could think about that because it's like people in power globally do conspire with one another, and it's like that does happen sometimes, and like. The Overton window of like right and left is constructed by major media conglomerates to some extent, and it's like there are huge grains of truth in that theory, but once you buy into it on that level, then you're completely unable to distinguish right from wrong on some level because it's like I've had conversations with people who buy this because it's like they can't even bring themselves to say like. Yeah, putting kids in cages is definitively worse than other administrations' actions because it's all part of the same thing in their mind.
But then again, like, but you start a fake war and kill 1 million people.
Sure.
It's like, it does become fuzzy, which is worse. But more to the point, though, look, a lot of this stuff is true functionally. Like, there is no, like, one world government, of course, but, like, there is a relative minority that of wealth that controls power in this world.
Sure.
And look at our own country in the way the Pentagon works, military-industrial complex, whatever you want to call it. Like, in the 5 years after 9/11, between 2001 and 2005, $5 trillion went missing from the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Just went missing. $5 trillion went missing.
Right.
Right. Almost $1 trillion, like $700 billion a year at least, goes to the military issue. This is a huge thing besides, like, when a Democrat gets into office and tries to curtail that, it's by a minute percentage. And so like there are certain things. I mean, no one's really curtailing the private prison system in this country. I mean, Obama said he was, but I don't know. Did he actually happen with that?
He took some steps to like reprieve certain people, but it's like he took some meaningful but symbolic steps.
Sure. Yeah. The point is like. I think for most people, it's either thing. We talk about how dangerous it is, but I think for most people, it's dangerous for people who are already engaged politically and are active to fall down a rabbit hole. Yeah. But I think if more people understood just how much they were getting fucked by both sides, it would be helpful. Like, you need to kind of understand that first and then piece it back together after you realize that a lot of it is fake and a lot of it is. I mean, it's very real to people who are on the fringes of society and who are vulnerable. But I mean, a lot of the power structures are built on just exploitation of wealth and and long term mining rights and for coltan mines in Africa, whatever the fuck like the things, the motivations are usually or always horseshit. I mean,
there are in very real ways like limits to our virtue that like huge limits to our virtue that apply to both major parties and both sides politically, like for sure.
And so just really quickly, I just want to kind of speak to Ray's point, because Ray is obviously saying to our audience. So Ray is saying that there's a sort of group of billionaires, right, that essentially kind of run the world, which obviously in a sense sounds very conspiracy.
Well, no, I'm saying the roots of power are
right. And so
it's not like they control everything, but I'm saying it's like. It's not the common people voting, is the point.
Yeah, and so the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because there was actually, just for empirical reasons and for our audience not to sort of consider us as these sort of big conspiracy loons, is that actually a few years ago there was a study done by social scientists, and I think Princeton it was, and so they actually kind of looked at the correlation between, let's say, the policies that were enacted within, I think it was about a 30 or 40 year period, and sort of, let's say, also the political kind of aspirations, or rather the political kind of leanings of different classes of people. So let's say they kind of divided it up into, I think it was middle class, obviously upper class, and then lower class. And so what they actually found was that more so than not, the upper class had this sort of the legislation that was actually more in tune with their political aspirations, more so than the middle class, and way more so than sort of poor people. So what they found is essentially that sort of the people who get their legislation enacted are the people who are the billionaires and the millionaires of the country. So
sure.
Like, honestly, that should be the baseline. Like, that shouldn't be controversial. Like, if you just show, like, if you just took someone who was like a nomad and said, hey, we have this thing called society, and like we have these resources, and like. The natural, and you're trying to describe who has the power, who doesn't. The person who has the resources has the power. Like, that's the way it's
right.
Like the idea of a pluralistic democracy where people somehow like abdicate, like put power aside and go by the virtue of debate is like insane idea. And if you can get it to work, great. But like people shouldn't be like wary of that as in their analysis. Like that should be kind of like what you expect to see.
Yeah, it's kind of like sometimes people will react as if it's unduly cynical to suggest that somebody would be motivated by money to invade a country or to take this like big destructive step in foreign policy. And it's like sometimes people will react to that as if you're kind of like, well, you must be really cynical to believe that, but it's like, why wouldn't that motivate people?
It's always motivate anyone, like money and power, and maybe barely sex, mostly money and power. For history, and somehow people always think they're the exception.
Yeah.
Right.
And especially in this country, interestingly enough, when, obviously now it's kind of like, I mean, it's pretty much mainstream that America invades, or has in the past at least, and probably still does, invades countries, right, to kind of topple governments, right? Right. And I mean, so the argument usually given by the right is that that's done for benevolent reasons, whereas the communists, right, did it for sort of more selfish or individualistic kind of pursuits and more sort of power pursuits.
I mean, do they actually believe that?
Yeah, they really do. They literally.
That's why they're morons. I mean, look at Iran. We have this whole thing about Iran right now. We might go to war, maybe we won't. I mean, how many people know that? Like, people still look at the hostage crisis when the Iranian Revolution happened in '79 or whatever, and they overthrew, and they had first of all the best kept hostages I've ever seen. No one got hurt really, and no one got killed. Whatever. Oh, these evil Iranians. And look, and it's not great for women over there. Maybe it's not.
Yeah.
Whatever.
No, it's definitely not.
No, it's not. It's not. But I mean, there's a reason. Like, look, there's a causal thing going on here because in '59. We fucking overthrew the Iranian, the democratically elected prime minister Mossadegh, who was not a communist. He was a populist. He was not a communist. But and we had this Red Scare going on, of course, which is bullshit. Because what happened was he wanted to nationalize the oil field. So British Aramco, which is modern day's BP. BP goes to Churchill, who was back in power in England, goes, hey, we want you to fucking take care of this Mossadegh guy, get rid of him. And they didn't have the fucking, they couldn't do it for a reason. So they convinced fucking Eisenhower to go fucking, they sent Kermit Roosevelt, Roosevelt's cousin, the CIA guy, and they fucking overthrew the government. And then the point, and everyone knew this. We installed the Shah, who is one of the most brutal dictators.
Yeah, and before that point, it's like Iran was fairly liberal in the way.
It was becoming, definitely. And he made it culturally liberal, I guess, in the sense of women, but also brutal. I mean, the secret police was just, incredible. They were just, kidnapping in the middle of the night, like any secret police. And the point is, so when the Iranian Revolution happens, and it's like, they take the embassy. Well, who works at the embassy? The fucking CIA. Everyone knows this. Yeah. Like everyone, and the rest of the world views this as like, oh yeah, this kind of payback, and it doesn't make them evil. But we act like Iran is just some fucking, it's like Cobra, the G.I. Joe, the fucking this evil, conglomerate. And what's the point? Well, so I don't know where these benevolent fucking coups happen. Yeah. We did it for an oil company.
Yeah,
we overthrew Guatemala for United Fruit. We overthrew fucking Hawaii. We made Kamehameha sign a fucking treaty at the point of a gun for Dole Sugar, right? With the Domino Sugar. What a sugar company. We get sugar. There's the history of the world.
We love our sugar.
We love this shit. We love resources.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
So it's like I don't know. That's why I don't understand what conservatism is. I mean, the idea of like, oh, we do this for benevolence. It seems like conservatism is like, just a cover for the. I don't want to like minorities, so here's some bullshit reasons I can say.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's like here's a political cover for every one of my like basest prejudices.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I hate the left too.
Right.
I don't. It's the thing. So this is my point, though. Is like there is no. If people aren't like these books are around. I wasn't unemployed for 20 years. Yeah. I read some books. I went on Audible.com. A lot of these were audiobooks I read.
Yeah.
And I'm not the most educated guy in the world by any means, but it's like people have to spend a little less time watching Netflix and maybe listen to a fucking audiobook once in a while. There are libraries around. Like at a certain point, it's your responsibility. Otherwise, you deserve the president you get.
Yeah.
No, it was literally Plato who said something like that. Like literally, the ignorant people deserve the despotic rulers, or something along those lines. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I guess it can be argued that that's why we have these podcasts.
Podcasts, one, and then two, actually, Ray, to your point, if somebody's like commuting, let's say, to work or whatever, like let's say here in the city, let's say somebody's taking the train to work, like me, I take like about an hour to get to work. Yeah. I could listen to an audiobook. There's nothing stopping me from doing that and educating myself, right? And like the same for anyone else who could be commuting, driving, whatever. If they're in LA, let's say, I hear the traffic over there. It's crazy.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
It's really brutal.
So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The point of this is reading is magic.
Yeah. Who would have thought it? Reading actually helps things. I just think it's like, there's nothing stopping. Like, why? You guys are supposedly. I mean, I don't know if you actually have listeners, but supposedly people look up to you.
No, we have a few. We have like maybe 2 or 3.
So stop letting them off the hook. Tell them to read.
You hear that, guys? You got to read. Reading's fundamental. It's magic.
We'll start giving.
It's actually true, by the way. I said it in kind of a joking tone, but legit. Yeah, of course.
Totally, yeah.
Well, since you guys brought up the topic, I wonder what books changed your lives.
I mean, to the point we were just talking, there's a really good book from Stephen Kersner. Here are 2 of them in this topic. One was All the Shah's Men, which is about the Iranian coup.
Yeah.
And he wrote another book called Overthrow, which was about that, but also like 10 other, basically how every military intervention in American history has been some sort of resource grab. Yeah. And it's not some Marxist screed. This is like, legit declassified information, you know?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about which books changed my mind about
Atlas Shrugged.
The way the world works. Atlas Shrugged.
Look, I did read it. It is a weird. It's worth reading it as it's a weird book.
Oh, God.
I realized the only thing we are only valuable for our efficiency, and we need to strip ourselves of empathy in order to pass the chrysalis.
Honestly, you gotta read. You have to read Atlas Shrugged for, if only this, for the 30-page long sex scenes,
Oh, God.
which are insane. About as he entered her, she understood his virtue.
I think, reading Legacy of Ashes about the CIA is a really great overview, I think, of just how, of just kind of deconstructing the CIA as an organization. Since then, I've realized that it's lacking in certain ways. It kind of makes them look like what you always say is it makes them look like the Keystone Cops,
right?
Which is it kind of removes some of the worst intentions from their actions. But I think in that sense, it's actually a good starter for understanding the CIA, because it's kind of like, okay, let's assume best intentions in all of these situations. They're still disastrous,
Well,
and
sure.
it's so that I think was good for just understanding foreign policy, and also reading one of my favorite authors is James Baldwin. We've talked about him, Leon, as and I love reading him because he, I think, recontextualizes a lot of he recontextualizes the civil rights movement in the United States in a really interesting way, I think, and kind of strips a lot of the romanticism from it, because people now talk a lot about the whitewashing of Martin Luther King, or the kind of unnecessary villainization of Malcolm X over the years, and I think that he as an author spent a lot of his career just kind of correcting romantic notions about this movement, and really kind of making it in a very stoic way, talking about it as a response to castration, and it's at one point he had a great line about how it's Martin Luther King was responding to the castration of black people in the South, and Malcolm X was responding to the castration in the North, and those things needed two different responses.
Right.
And it's I think that reading him too is just kind of strip me of certain romantic notions about the country in a way that isn't depressing, but it's it's informative.
The humanity.
A History of the Money and Banking in the United States by Murray Rothbard is an insanely illuminating book on just the nature of how most of the policy decisions, not so much foreign policy, but just the common conventional wisdom that we refer to as economics, how wrong a lot of it has been throughout history, just based on people just not looking at the data just read it. Just read Rothbard. He was an outspoken. I mean, he'd fall on the libertarian side of things. It seems he was called a libertarian or an anarcho-capitalist. And look, I'm not an advocate for anarcho-capitalism, but his analysis of, much the same way Chomsky. I don't what Chomsky wants. I don't want. His vision of a socialist, anarcho-socialist world. I don't want. But Chomsky's analysis is undisputable, really, to me. And the same thing with Rothbard. It's there's two different skills. You have to agree with someone's politics to agree with their assessment of even Marx is pretty good at analyzing capitalism to a certain extent.
Can I channel Matt Damon for a second and say, the only book you need to read is Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States.
Gordon Wood.
Yeah, that was actually a classic. And just kind of just really quickly speak on the point about James Baldwin. So interestingly enough, so before kind of clinical psychology became, I guess, pop or mainstream, James Baldwin had a really good conception of sort of the psychological conception of racism. So for him, he understood this as this othering process, where you only saw the other person, or you saw this sort of outsider as the other person, because you needed somebody to imbue with that shadow concept of yourself. All of those shadow parts of yourself, right, in order to be white. Because he said, look at it like this, right? He said, why is it that, like, you know, certain people are called white people and then others are called black people, right? What is white associated with, right? What is the connotation? Purity, right? So in order to maintain that purity, they need a black, right? So in order for white to be pure, you need black. And what would you sort of imbue that concept of blackness with, right? Obviously, all of those disgusting, dirty, sort of savage-like qualities that the pure white person doesn't have. So therefore, the outsider, you know, the sort of shadow itself can be sort of obviously projected, and then it could be fought outwardly to say that this is the problem, this is why society is bad. We need to sort of get rid of not the sort of not the wretchedness of our internal kind of state, but really the wretchedness of our external community, right? That's the issue that makes everything so difficult and so intolerable.
Yeah, totally.
Plus, they didn't have guns back then, so they're able, you know, it was easier to enslave them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, brass tacks.
Sure.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, the other thing's good, you know, smart too.
Yeah. But no, like he actually, yeah, he was great at that. I mean, he was great at just like really treating it like diagnosing it almost, like treating it as a pathology more than as something that has. And there's nothing wrong with writing about it in this way too, which a lot of American authors have. It's like a lot of American authors will talk about it in a way that is, you know, it's more about, you know, how it affected them and their self-perception and self-esteem. And with James Baldwin, it always seemed like there was something just very clinical almost about like his diagnosis of it. It was more like, you know, he was diagnosing a pathology than anything, you know.
Yeah, really. It was like a sickness of the cultural soul.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love Baldwin too. And I'm just, obviously, Alen, what are your favorite books?
My favorite books, you know. Listen, I talk about it every podcast. Power.
Perks of being a wallflower.
That's one of them. No, but like, yeah, like Power of Now. I liked. That one's more of like a kind of new agey spiritual kind of book, but I like the practical stuff in there. They talk about like ego, how your mind works, stuff like that. How to get like present to the moment. How like we tend to react and like kind of catch yourself in a reaction, kind of be able to like slow down and not necessarily like go with your impulses. I mean, Ray, you were talking about it actually earlier, how people have like this ego and say this point that this thing that they were thinking maybe for 5 years or 10 years or something like that, they'd be married to this point, and if they hear something contrary, they might not like go with it. They'll fight to the death for their belief. But it's like this book kind of helped me to think in a different way. Like if I heard something contrary to what I knew, maybe I try to figure out like, why does this person think like this? Like, and then like stop and not necessarily jump at everything. Like try to figure out like, for real, like why do you have these points? And then maybe I tell them, why do I have the points I have? And then maybe eventually we kind of come to some kind of understanding where maybe we could either combine it, or maybe I figure out I was completely wrong, or they find out they were completely wrong, or whatever.
Or maybe you fuck.
Exactly. I think that's always the end goal. No?
Right.
No, that's a good debate. That's like how a good debate ends.
I would love to just have like, you know, a nice vigorous debate that ends with like a sweaty limp dick gangbang.
For country.
Yeah, for country. Just everyone's waving their flaccid small cocks.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Come, like, just that dribble, that weird dribble cum that comes out when you're not hard. Just that's just everywhere. Bunch of unsatisfied women. Smells like shit.
So, you know, before you guys came on, like a little bit earlier today, I was listening to a podcast with, it was Rogan and Miss Pat.
Cool. She's great.
Yeah,
she's
awesome.
wonderful. She's so funny.
Yeah, she was talking about like her past and like traumatic stuff, you know? But then like he's like, oh, if you could have ever done any of these things any different way, would you have, or anything like that, because they made you who you are? She's like, no. And actually, like when she talks about stuff that happened to her and she makes it like, you know, like comedy out of it, she said like for her it makes something that she couldn't control before, like now it's under her control because now you can laugh about it, and it like changes her like experience to it. I don't know like if that, you know, if you guys have any thoughts on that, but like do you feel like comedy
Ray has a great joke about stealing a baby that I think is very cathartic for him to tell.
Yeah, you know, it's like I don't think I would do that, but it's always in the back of my head. And no, it's like it's just, yeah, look, owning who you are. I mean, it's one of the earlier things you kind of like start doing, like owning I mean, it becomes hack almost sometimes. It was like, hey, I'm the guy who looks like this and this and that. And it's like, but yeah, you kind of, as you get better, you kind of own who you are and you kind of recontextualize yourself. Yeah, it's a way of kind of taking what you are and like, you know, picking the parts that work.
Yeah,
like building up.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's like, I think everyone has a moment. Everyone who's like trying on some level to be honest on stage, I think, gets to a point early on where it's like they're being like maybe they're even being overly confessional. It's like, for me, I know I had to cross the line of like, okay, now I'm being a little overly confessional on stage, and it's not allowing for like it's not allowing for anybody to have fun. Right. So it's like now I have to pull it back, and it's like you kind of learn what the balance is for you, because it's like, you know, you don't want to. I don't get what the point of doing this is if you don't want to be a little bit honest about yourself and like own yourself on some level. But I also, you know,
but also women be shopping.
For real, women be shopping. So true. But yeah, and then it's like you see people. I do sometimes think people also go too far with this, like using it as therapy thing. It's like, you do have a responsibility to make people happy at the end of the day. Right, if you're going to be up there.
Well, that's the idea. It's like taking your pain, and like synthesizing it into something. It requires that people lose sight of that. Yeah. It's not just a cathartic, like you're just taking a shit on the audience face. It's like it's taking this and building something real out of it.
Building a beautiful shit statue for them to enjoy. Yeah.
A shit statue.
What do they call those things? A damagu or I forget. It's from whatever.
Building them a shit Christ.
Shit Christ. Oh, remember shit Christ? He was great. It was Piss Christ.
It was Piss Christ?
It was Shit Mary, I think. It was a Shit Mary. It was.
That's great.
Yeah, the 90s are great.
Yeah. People are just having fun.
Is that going to show up in when Stranger Things is over and they finally go retro 90s? Is Piss Christ going to be like part of that? I hope.
Yeah, I hope.
Do you guys remember Piss Christ?
No, what is that?
It was this controversy that happened in New York in the like late 90s, where like some guy who had like, I think it was a city grant for like to do art or whatever, and like he made like a Christ out of piss. He pissed on a canvas and made Christ, and everyone,
he used grant money for that. That's great.
I believe so. And I think Giuliani was all like, "This is disgusting," and all this shit. And like, no one cares. Kids just have like a bishop's cock in their ass, and no one cares. The Pope is just fucking fingering some 12-year-old. But like, it's piss Christ, it's terrible. And like, it was a simpler time.
Oh,
yeah.
I actually thought you guys were talking about the Larry David episode. I forgot what that show is called.
Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Yeah, there you go. And like, he was taking a piss in the bathroom, and then I think a little bit of it got onto the Christ picture.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that's
well, it's probably based on that, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. Wow, yeah. Holy shit. All right, guys. We are...
Well...
Yeah, we're like pretty much ready to wrap things up. Man.
We should do a little clap for them, Lucy. Here, hold the mic. Clap.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to do a clap for you guys.
And that's just we're showing you some of to your fans at home. This is some of the technical magic that happens.
It's behind the scenes.
Yeah,
behind the scenes, how you edit. Yeah.
But yeah, we probably should have done that at the very end.
But you can't because the Skype we're gonna turn the Skype off and then you can't. It turns the thing.
Well, we'll do it before we turn the Skype off.
Yeah, but I don't know. We're going to say goodbye. I don't know. I wanted to get it in before they just kind of bounce. And we're like, oh, now we can. And they call us up an hour from now. And like, we don't know how to sync it up. Can you do it? And like, what? And like, and we start hating them. That's going to be a problem.
Actually, I was wondering, like, where, if we wanted to follow you guys, like, where could we follow you?
Well, Lucy, you first.
Oh, well, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at the Steinbag, STEIN bag.
Yeah.
Wait, how do you spell bag?
And you can follow me I'm at Ray Kump on Twitter and Instagram. Of course, listen to Our Love is Disgusting, but I also have my own solo podcast called Kump, which you can also check out. It's a lot of rambling and chaos, but whatever.
Yeah, and you can check me out eating trash behind our apartment
with me.
With Ray.
Do you want some alone time?
Yeah, can I have some space?
Eat your box while you eat trash.
So, like, are you guys on, like, YouTube, or is it, like, iTunes? And
Yeah, wherever you get, but again, with the podcast, it's wherever podcasts
Hey,
are.
man.
Listen, we were only once on YouTube, just YouTube.
People know how to find podcasts. You know, I'm only on RSS Caster. It's an Android, but it doesn't work with a new Android. You have to have an old Android phone. What are you talking about? It's on iTunes, it's on everywhere. Go find us.
We have our own frequency at Radio Free Brooklyn.
Get a ham radio and figure it out.
Do you guys come on before or after Bill Cooper's The Hour of Our Time?
Yeah. We're going to do a crossover episode with him soon.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having us.
All right,
Appreciate it.
guys. Thank you.
We'll see you guys soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya.
And you can follow us at Seize the Moment Podcast on Instagram. And on Twitter, you can follow us at Seize_podcast. And don't forget to click subscribe and the little bell
Yes,
to
hit
get
the bell.
notifications. And see you guys next time.
See ya.